Hello. How are you guys doing? It is day 4 of the 5 days to feeling better challenge. Mouthful. Um, so I'm just waiting a few seconds to see if anyone wants to join live today. But yeah, we've been going through each day a perspective shift and an action step, some sort of step you can try out to make these things more practical, to make it real in your life, and not to just be talking about ideas. I think it's really important. And obviously, as a coach, I'm also like, how do we make this actionable? How do we actually implement? How do we make it practical? How do we make it relevant to our lives? And so that's what we are doing also with that action step. But also, I love taking concepts and ideas and shifting our perspective on them, because that can already almost like move us, our compass, in like a new direction. And then when we take an action step, it's in the right direction instead of usually in that looping activity that we've been trying for, years, months, decades sometimes. So we want to reorient, we want to change our perspective, change the way we think. Hi, Jane. So glad you're back. Nice to have you. And it's always nice if you, engaging in it, commenting. It's always nice to have you here because you are quite interactive, and that's really awesome. It creates a really nice discussion, and of course lets me know when my audio stops working, for example. So yeah, welcome and thanks for being here. Okay, so we've been going through a perspective shift and an action step each day. We're on day 4 now. You can go back and watch the previous days for those perspective shifts and action steps. Like I said, every time you comment on the live sessions, whether you're watching live or watching it afterwards, it doesn't matter. But if you're commenting on these sessions, each time you comment, you'll be entered into a draw to win a 90-minute stress audit session. So you'll be looking at the stresses in your life, in every area of your life. We'll be looking at your resources, and then we'll be coaching on an area that you really want some support in, an area that you really want to move forward in, or an area that's really feeling quite stressful to you, or that you're just really not feeling great, or you're feeling under-resourced and you really want to move forward with some support. So yes, comment as much as you can. I will do that draw on Monday, so you still have time. We have our last day tomorrow, and then you'll still have time this weekend to watch and comment. And then on Monday, I will do the draw. Okay, I'll do the draw on Monday at this time, so 5:30 p.m. SA time. Okay, awesome. So today, our perspective shift is going from seeing calm as coming from everything going well to seeing calm as coming from supporting yourself well. So I'll say that again. Must the stressful situations be explained in the comments? No, you don't have to do that unless, we're talking about it. You're welcome to tell me what the stresses are. But yeah, that will be more in the 90-minute stress audit session. But as we're going through things, you're welcome to tell me about stressful situations that you're experiencing in relation to the things that we are talking about. Okay, so the idea is that we often think about, I can only be calm and confident and enjoying my work and relaxed when I know that nothing is going to go wrong that day, right? Or when, I will know everything that a patient asks of me. I will avoid any conflict with my patients. My patients will be happy with me, all of that. We think that's when I can be calm and confident, right? And we are shifting to maybe you can be calm and confident in the absence of that. So even with certain stresses, certain things that maybe don't go so well, but the reason that you are calm and confident despite that is because you are supporting yourself. And we will go through that a little bit more in this. So I want you to think about this, and you also can let me know in the comments, what are your usual strategies for being more confident or feeling better in practice. Often this is things like we take endless courses. I am a chronic course taking person. That was always the way that I try to deal with that. Like I thought, if I just take the next course, if I just take more courses, then I will know enough to feel confident at work. And I will know enough to avoid a patient asking me about something and me not knowing the answer. We look at trying to please patients all the time, right? Because we're trying to avoid them being unhappy with us or them not wanting to come back. So we are pleasing, we are trying to like keep them happy. We're avoiding all kinds of, we're avoiding conflict in every way that we can. So essentially, our strategy then is to avoid things going wrong. We're like, I need to avoid things going wrong because then I will feel good in practice, right? That is our strategy, usually. So what I want to shift us away from is that kind of strategy. So we are, and the reason why I say I want us to move away from that is because firstly, it's a losing battle. There is just no way we can always prevent a patient being unhappy with us, not knowing the answer, not knowing more about this particular, situation that the patient comes in with, right? We can never know all of those things. We can never prevent all of those things for the simple reason that we cannot control all of those things, right? Those things are not within our control. They're about people's perceptions. They're about the outcomes. They're about our patient's behavior, right? And we just cannot control all of those things. Try as we might. So we try and control and we try and manipulate these things to make sure that nothing is ever going wrong so that we feel calm and confident and relaxed. But as you might know, that also doesn't ever end up making you feel calm or relaxed, right? Only if, everything genuinely is going amazingly on that day. But even then we sort of think about, oh, but what about the next patient? Or, what if something happens still in the rest of the day or whatever? We're always kind of looking forward and worrying about what's going to happen in the future, whether that's immediate or we're already worrying about tomorrow. So it never actually fulfills its promise to make us calm and relaxed and confident, right? Hey, Tash. So it never kind of fulfills this promise. We always feel like we're on this hamster wheel of eventually I'm going to take enough courses, I'm going to please the patients enough, I'm going to do things well enough that I'm just never going to feel anxious and stressed and all of that, right? And it just never seems to, we never seem to arrive. And there's a great quote by Elizabeth Gilbert, and she says, "You're afraid to surrender because you don't want to lose control, but you never had control. All you had was anxiety." And I think we can all relate to that so much. But that's essentially what we're doing, right? We're trying to use that strategy of, I'm going to control everything so that it goes well, so that I don't end up disappointing anyone, or no one's unhappy with me, or I never not know the answer. And all we end up with is the sense of anxiety because we're trying to control this all the time. And we firstly can never control it, and it makes us feel like crap. So surrendering to that is not now losing control, right? We didn't have control and now we stopped having control. That was always an illusion. Control has always been an illusion and will always be an illusion. I apologize. Okay, so thinking about it from this sense, right? So the shift we're making is, what if the calm and confidence and feeling relaxed at work comes from having your own back and comes from supporting yourself no matter what happens? Like, you can have the worst day at work. You can have a patient thinking you're absolutely useless and dumb and a selfish, horrible person, right? But if you are supporting yourself and you know that you have your own back no matter what happens, you're not going to judge yourself, you're not going to criticize yourself, you're going to genuinely treat yourself like a good friend would, right? Like if you think about, yeah, we must know everything. If you think about like you having a really tough day and something went wrong, or a patient had a judgment of you, or colleagues were, talking behind your back, or you felt like you just weren't performing in your practice the way that you feel you should be practicing. Imagine you telling your good friend that this is how you're feeling, right? Imagine that friend going like, well, I'm sure you just must be like quite useless at your job. And I'm sure that patient was justified in thinking that you're useless, because you probably are useless, right? Like imagine a friend saying that stuff to us, or like, just try harder tomorrow. Like you just need to be better tomorrow. We would never do that to our own friends, and we would never accept that kind of, hopefully you would never accept that kind of treatment from your good friends. So just think about, that's all that things like self-compassion are, right? It's just treating yourself in the same way that you would a good friend. So shifting from, I need to do better, I need to try harder, I need to learn more, I need to please more, I need to perfect more in order to feel good, in order to feel calm and confident and actually enjoy my work. Shifting from that strategy, which we know doesn't work and doesn't feel great, to a strategy of, what if I surrender to anything might happen, right? I'm going to try my best. I'm going to learn things. I'm going to take courses. I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to be a genuinely kind and compassionate person, but surrendering to the fact that you don't have control over what's going to happen. And in the absence of that control, all you can really do is say, I'm going to support myself no matter what, right? No matter what ends up happening with this decision, I'm going to have my own back. I'm not going to judge myself. I'm not going to criticize myself. Tash, you can also give us a little, I know this has been kind of a journey for you, so you can always let people know, like, I'm not saying you're completely on the other side, but you've kind of gone through that, that process, and how different it feels on the other side of that. Just to give some people a bit of hope if they don't quite believe that they can treat themselves better and, still do things well at work. Okay. So when we talked in the rest of the week, we talked a little bit about stresses and the idea of neuroception, right? Which is that our nervous system is constantly scanning for threats. And those threats can come from the outside world, the literal environment. It can come from other people. And it can also come from inside ourselves, right? So when we are critical and we judge ourselves, that has the same stress response in our body as when someone else is being harshly critical of us. So if you kind of got this like, ugh, that would be a horrible feeling if you imagined a friend talking to you that way, being all harsh and critical, just know that that same physiological response is happening when you are this way with yourself. And again, it doesn't feel good, but it's also not effective. Think about if a friend had to talk to you that way. Jane says we're often our own worst enemies, definitely creating our own stress. So often, if a friend had to talk to you that way, it wouldn't be effective. You would just feel horrible. You wouldn't necessarily be like pumped up and be like, yes, let's do this, let's grow, let's learn something, let's try again tomorrow, or let's get a really good night's sleep so that we feel better tomorrow, let's like nourish ourselves. You wouldn't have that kind of response if a friend talked to you that way. So we often think of, well, maybe it doesn't feel great, but at least it's effective, right? And just getting out of that idea that is somehow effective. We would never think it's effective if someone else was doing that to us, but somehow when we're doing it, it should be effective, right? We know that our performance gets affected when we are so anxious, when there's so much pressure on us to perform. We can get almost like paralyzed by that stress and anxiety. And actually, our performance can be worsened by that instead of what we're thinking it's doing, which is, I'm just holding myself to high standards and I'm going to perform better. let's call it what it is. It's being very judgy and critical of ourselves, which never feels good, no matter who it's coming from. Tash says, for sure, it's a good reminder to have my own back. Learning to be more compassionate with myself has made a huge difference, lowered the stakes and reminded me that I'm not my job. There is more to me. I love that, Tash. Awesome. Such a good way to put it. It's like, I mean, think about it. If your whole identity and self-worth is wrapped up in like how you're performing on that particular day, like the stakes are so high, right? No wonder you feel horrible, and also it affects your actual performance at work and just your general experience of work, right? So that's awesome. Thanks for reminding us as well, Tash. Okay, cool. So the opposite of being judgmental and critical of ourselves is that support, right? So genuinely supporting ourselves through that, right? It's like someone going through tough times and doing things that are challenging, and having that support. Someone was saying the other day, yes, growth happens outside of your comfort zone, but you can still support yourself outside of your comfort zone. You can still create comfort. You can still comfort yourself outside your comfort zone, right? It doesn't mean you have to be anxious and unsure and just completely freaking out, right? You can still support and comfort yourself through that. Okay, awesome. So there's a few components of Jane. I love that you love that sentence that Tash said. See? Good advice, Tash. Okay, awesome. So self-compassion is, if you want to just think of it in the most simple terms, it's just being a good friend to yourself. And you can filter it through that with everything, right? Am I treating myself like a good friend would? Am I talking to myself like a good friend would? Am I supporting myself like a good friend would? There are actual components of self-compassion. So the first one is what we're kind of talking about now, where you're being kind to yourself instead of being judgmental and critical, right? So it's just being kind. I think we often also think about that as like letting ourselves off the hook and just like, no matter what happens, everything is fine. Even if we like, you know, let's say we were going to go to gym in the morning, right? And then we woke up in the morning and we were like, I don't really feel like going to gym. That we think that self-compassion always means being like, okay, it's fine, you don't have to go to gym, right? That isn't what it means. Like a good friend wouldn't necessarily always, right? This is very context specific, right? That's why you can always filter it through that. If you genuinely are exhausted, a good friend is not going to force you to like get out of bed and be all military and like, no, it doesn't matter how you feel or, you know, how much energy you have or whatever, you better just get your ass out of that bed and to the gym, right? But also a good friend is not always going to just let you off the hook whenever you, you know, are not pursuing the goals that you had, right? Sometimes they're going to be the person encouraging you and saying like, no, you can do this. It's really okay. I'll meet you there, you know, or whatever. Some kind of like support or, you know, it's a similar idea of like, if you are trying to give up alcohol and you're out with your friends, it's not necessarily nice of them to be like, no, come on, man, have a drink, you deserve it, right? A good friend would support you in that genuine pursuit of, you know, like, I don't want to drink alcohol, and they'll support you in that. They'll, you know, take you at your word, they'll accept that answer, and they will help you in whatever way they can. So it doesn't always mean just like blowing off your goals, right? Tash saying thanks. Also a good point was trying not to fix everything and rather focus on supporting myself better instead of trying to be better. Awesome. We don't tell our friends to be better. Exactly. Exactly. I love that. And like the interesting thing is when we do support ourselves and when we do treat ourselves like a good friend, we genuinely do get better in our career. But it's almost like there is some sort of quote of like happiness preceding success. So happiness actually comes before success. And we think of it as the other way around, right? But if you are, think about it, if you are happy at work, if you are enjoying yourself, if you're calm, you're relaxed, if you're actually curious about the things that you're learning and you're taking the next course because you're like, this sounds so exciting, I can't wait to learn about this stuff, rather than like, oh, please let this thing be like, let this finally be the course that's going to like make me feel good about myself, right? Like, it's a very different experience. So you will actually have more longevity in your career, you'll enjoy your career more, and you're more likely to develop and grow and learn because you have supported yourself. So that's really awesome, Tash. Thanks. Jane says we are the experts in our lives. Exactly. Okay, awesome. And then, so self-kindness versus judgment, that's the first aspect of self-compassion. So being kind to ourselves versus judging and criticizing. The second is common humanity versus isolation. So common humanity meaning we see ourselves as just another human being, right? When we mess up, when we don't know the answer, when we are struggling to learn something, we just say like, yes, I'm a human. This is what happens when you're a human, right? We don't fall into this. So that the other one is isolation, where you just remove yourself because you feel so ashamed. You feel like you're uniquely flawed, that no one's going to understand how you feel, that no one understands why you're so like useless at what you're doing, right? You have this like separating, this shaming aspect to it when you isolate, versus common humanity as like, we're all just human and I am just another human being. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to take time to learn something. I'm going to forget the things that I learned, right? I'm going to sometimes not know the answer. I'm going to sometimes, you know, be less nice to a patient than I maybe intended to, or I'm going to be, you know, kind of short and snappy with a colleague when I didn't mean to, or whatever the case is, right? But just seeing it as like, whenever we do something that we perceive as flawed, we see it as, I'm flawed because I'm human and everyone else is flawed too. Not I'm flawed, I'm like uniquely flawed, I'm different, I'm separate, and no one will get that or understand or accept me. And then the third one is similar to what we spoke about yesterday, which is mindfulness versus over-identification. So you can go back and watch, I think it was yesterday's? Yes, yesterday's, to learn more about that. But essentially that idea of we are being aware of our emotions, of our thoughts, of our beliefs, of what's happening. We're just being mindful of that and aware, instead of completely being in it, completely identifying with that thing. So when we are, you know, feeling like we are, you know, like I feel like I suck today, you know, is like that idea of mindfulness. Or I'm having the thought that I really suck today, like I'm really in my head about sucking today, right? Versus I suck, right? You just like completely in it. You really believe that about yourself, that you believe that you are flawed. So kind of completely being immersed or like identifying with whatever our thought or emotion is at that point. But yeah, you can go back to yesterday's for that. And then the action step, Tash already did this one, but maybe you want to reassess yourself, Tash. But the action step today is to take a self-compassion test. So I'm going to pop that. I can actually do it now so that you guys can go from this live to there. But you can actually, as far as I remember, you can do the test and then you can navigate away from it before you have to put in your email address and stuff like that. So they do ask you for your email address, but you can take it and see your results and then navigate away before you have to put that in if you don't want to receive emails and stuff from that. But I think it's just a really good way to see like what our starting point is, and you can use that as kind of an assessment for how am I doing along the way and see if there's been any improvements. But they assess you on those different aspects of self-compassion, so you can get an idea of where maybe are you most needing you know, the next step, right? Are you more struggling with being kind to yourself? Are you more struggling with seeing yourself as with, you know, just another human? Or are you struggling with over-identifying instead of being mindful? And they will also have practices and stuff that you can do if you'd like to sort of practice that aspect of it. But I think the first step is just being aware of where you are on that, because I think I at least had this perception of like, I'm very kind to myself. I never, talk terribly to myself. And I think because I wasn't going like, you useless human being or whatever, my association was, if I'm not doing that, then I'm being very self-compassionate. But there are so many other ways that shows up, and often it's just holding yourself to different standards than you would other people. Like, you're totally okay with other people making mistakes, or taking a while to learn something, or forgetting something, or whatever it is. Like, when you are with other people, you might have very different standards, but then when it comes to you, you're like, I'm not allowed to make a mistake. I'm never allowed to not know the answer. I'm never allowed to, have someone unhappy with me or disappointed or whatever, right? So it can show up in different ways, and I think it's really helpful to just get a sense of that. Tash says, that was 100% worth doing. Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. That will motivate people to go and take a look at that. And Jane says, comparing our flaws with others is also causing us stress. Absolutely, absolutely. We can definitely have a very different idea of kind of like that, holding other people to other standards, or holding ourselves to other standards. It's the same kind of thing. We perceive our flaws as so huge and so like devastating and irreparable, and versus with others, we just see it as, it's not a big deal. So that's definitely true. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for joining. I know I say I stick to 20 minutes, but I always go a little bit over. Awesome. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the last one, and thank you so much for being here. It's always nice to have you guys joining and engaging and all of that. So thank you, and have an awesome evening. I'll see you soon. Bye.